GLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to the 1000th episode of Birds 365. If you're new, you heard that correctly. 1,000 episodes in the books after today's episode. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning edition, a special edition of Birds 365 as we wrap up, as we go into our 1,000th episode, and you've been here for every single one of them, Johnny Mac. So well done by you. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
I'm doing well. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We've reached 1,000. So I want to thank everybody off the front of this for listening, you know, whether it's live on YouTube or X or podcast form on your favorite podcast platform. We always appreciate it. And then, you know, I'm going to burn the bridges and bury everybody on this tush push stuff. I'd stop it. All of you. Stop it.
Yes, stop.
I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. Both sides are so full of shit. I mean, it is just mind-numbing. I put this on X yesterday. You know, the Eagles weren't even good compared to what they were last year, which Shepard Lurie admitted.
Yeah, he did.
They were far worse last year than 2021 when it came to the traditional quarterback sneak. That's number one. So stop acting like that. Number two, yes, I'm the one who tells you people the NFL stances on player safety are easy to poke holes in. So I got 95 people on my image. Oh, Ryan Shazier, DeMar Hamlin. Yeah, if you listen to the show, you already know this. You're part of the problem. You don't care about player safety. You just want the damn play in the game because you think it's going to help the Eagles win. So you're part of the hypocrisy. It's mind-numbing, Zander. It is awful. What happened yesterday, though, is the league gave a clear signal. It wants to roll back to the 2004 rule when it comes to pushing. Doesn't mean it'll get 24 votes in May, but I wouldn't bet against it. And by the way, as long as the Eagles have Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata, Camshire, they're going to be fine. It's not going to affect them on the field remotely. In fact, they were 77.8% on first try tush pushes last year. 77.8%. They were 92.9% in 2021. The last year, Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter, the last year they didn't use it. They used the traditional mode for the most part. And Jeffrey Lurie even acknowledged yesterday, people are starting to pick up on it, you know. And you saw part of it was Landon Dickerson jumping offside, all this nonsense. I've been advocating for years now that they should spread people out and switch it up. They're going to be better in the quarterback sneak. I guarantee it. If they go back to the traditional mode. It's just ridiculous. And it's going. I don't know when, if it's May or when Roger Goodell gets enough votes, but it's going. So live with it.
The hypocrisy, though, is crazy, John, as you pointed out at the start of the show. But, Johnny Mac, you can take a victory lap on this one because you told us months ago, you know, literally exactly the way this was going to develop. It's not worded the right way. It's not going to get through. If they do want to get it through, look for them to table it. I mean, the whole way through, you prepared us for what was going to happen yesterday, and ultimately that's what happened. The owners tabled it until May, right? Their next meeting is May, so the tush push is on the back burner for a little while.
Yeah, thank God. But now it's going to be back up and it's going to be the same misinformation, the same nonsense. Oh, they're jealous. They want to take it away from
I don't know. I think the Packers listen to you and they're going to come at it from a different approach. Maybe the Eagle fans.
Well, I think the league's going to take it over. I think the competition committee is going to take it over. And at that point, it becomes, they'll word it the way they want it. They'll go back. They'll roll it back. And Roger Goodell even said it. They're looking at rolling back to the 2004 rule. And I still don't know why they changed it. They claim they changed it because it was difficult to officiate downfield, which, again, I think is complete bullshit. But they open up this Pandora's box. You know what's most surprising about this? It's it's surprising how long it took somebody to find a loophole. You know, I always bring up Bill Belichick and the formations.
Right.
And they shut that down right away. I mean, right away, like months later. It's taken them years to shut this down. You know, with the push stuff, it started first at the college level. Should have been an alert, like, we don't want this. But, you know, the NFL, I always say, is they're not proactive, they're very reactive. And now it's gotten to the point where, you know, and I think Chris Jones contributed to it. I think Frankie Louvu contributed to it. All this nonsense. There's a bunch of different things. You know, safety's the convenient one that they can pull the wool over people's eyes with some altruism. You know, if you're easily swayed by that kind of stuff. Some people just don't like to play. Some people, I remember Peter King from day one pretty much said, yeah, you got to get this out of this. Yeah, it's ugly. It's just ugly. It's me in the bubble screen. Now, I don't agree. I've never advocated banning the bubble screen because I think it's an ugly play. I'm not banning it because it's ugly. I'm banning it from my perspective because I don't want pushing in the game at all, anywhere. And I think ultimately, if I were in control, obviously, which I'm not, that would be.
What does it come down to for you? Why you don't want pushing? Just aesthetic. It's not football.
No, it's not. It's an unfair advantage for the offense. You know, the defense has got it hard enough.
Yeah, right.
Simple as that. That's but you can't.
Now you're pushing guys over the defense who already can barely tackle, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but you know, people can't be honest because that's not good enough. And everybody's contributed to that. The NFL, the players, the fans. Nobody can be honest. So they got to make up all these bullshit theories and
right.
concepts. And, you know, it's unfair to the defense. That's my argument. If you don't agree with it, fine. But that's my argument. That's the honest argument. And I think that's ultimately why they're going to take it out of the game when they do ultimately take it out of the game. And by no means do I blame the Eagles for anything. They took it bad. I always go back to Billy Martin in the George Brett Pine Tar game and Bill Belichick, most notably. If you find a rule that shouldn't be a rule and you find a loophole and you want to take advantage of it, go ahead. But that doesn't mean, in both of those instances, Billy Martin and baseball for baseball fans, for football fans, Bill Belichick, in both instances, the leagues closed the loopholes. And that's what's going to happen here.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. That's what happened yesterday. I do want to talk to you about Jeffrey Lurie. I don't want to, John, you started off at that. You came on a show at 1,000 swinging from a South Philly basement.
And by the way, I didn't do that because it just drove me nuts yesterday because I had so many people go, oh, DeMar Hamlin, every play's dangerous. Yeah, duh. I've heard me say that a million times. But I mean, they don't even recognize their own hypocrisy. They don't care about DeMar Hamlin or Ryan Shazier. Then they say, oh, well, this play could get hurt somebody catastrophically. They don't care.
Yeah.
Their favorite team is successful with it. And by the way, they're not as successful last year as they thought. Go back to 2021. In 2017, before anybody knew what the tush push was, they were 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I thought Lurie had a good comment about that, John. He pointed to
He
the
had
RPO.
He had a great comment.
Went to the Super Bowl in 22 on the RPO, and that changed very quickly. And then how he had to adapt. He pointed out that they weren't as good at the tush push this year. So I think Jeffrey Lurie's interview was pretty good yesterday, Johnny Mac. I mean, he sat down for about 40 minutes, talked about a wide range of topics from Howie to the cash over cap. Brought me back to the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade where you laid that out for everybody. And, you know, people were saying, oh, it's not that. It clearly was that, preparing for those big contracts they have coming up. talked about the White House, talked about the Super Bowl, winning big, the contract extension for Howie and Nick. What were your takeaways from Jeffrey Lurie's 40-minute sit down with the media yesterday?
I love the soliloquies at the start. This is one of my favorite
Yeah,
times.
what did he say at the start? The parade was great. It takes a lot of people, and it was a special season.
just-
Something along those lines.
Yeah. I just like Jeffrey's in his element when he gets to go off the cuff. It's more of that. So I always enjoy those. But it was actually much shorter than it typically is, to be honest. Typically. But, they won. There's not much to talk about as far as negativity. So I think that sort of when there is some negative things, he tries to cut them off at the path. Like there's nothing negative. They won the Super Bowl. And, as he pointed out, he quickly scaled it back. Certainly in the modern generation, you can make a strong argument that this is one of the greatest teams of all time with their dominance and their roster. In hindsight, and when he got asked, he kind of went down that road, and then he was asked, "Do you really believe that?" And he kind of backtracked a little bit, but they deserve to be in the conversation at least. For 1 year, I mean, they blew out. They won the. They had a blowout in the NFC Championship game. They had a blowout against one of the all-time great teams in the Super Bowl. They set a postseason record for points scored. It's hard to poke holes in this team. And again, the Rams were the one who gave them the best fight. And to me, that wasn't really much of a fight other than the Eagles made a couple key mistakes and gave them a chance to steal a game. But they still outplayed them. I think that was pretty significantly clear. So, really spectacular team. And there wasn't much negativity to talk about. And for those worrying about contracts, which is ludicrous. I mean, Nick's going to get extended, and it's obviously coming soon. And Howie's, going to be here for.
I thought his answer on Howie's contract was hilarious. Yeah, we even talked about that, but he's here for a long time.
Yeah. So anybody worried about that kind of stuff shouldn't be worried about that kind of stuff. But yeah, and then he was, they've been very, as a team, I think they've been more honest this offseason. I think Howie's been more honest than he typically is and has been. And I think Jeffrey as well. And again, that's because they're successful and they feel like they have a little bit more rope and they don't have to spin things. And they can tell you pretty honestly. Like we've been telling you on this show and other people have been telling you, the CJ Gardner-Johnson, they laid it out for you. So you no longer have to poke holes at us.
Right.
They laid it out for you plainly. Howie did, Jeffrey did, what they're doing, what their philosophy is, what they're trying to do. It's not about the immediate moment. It's about the players coming up, whether it's Cam Jurgens, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Can't keep everybody, and they've created this demarcation line.
Right.
You're above it or you're below it. And there's some difficult decisions you got to make, most notably Milton Williams, who you talked about, and Josh Sweat, and CJ to a lesser extent. And probably down the road, I still think more likely than not, Dallas Goedert's probably going to be elsewhere at some point. Yeah, because they're trying to keep as many as those good young players as they can.
Yeah, and I think Goddard, I mean, Lurie didn't directly say Goddard was going to be gone, but I thought the way he answered the question was interesting because he immediately brought up CJ Gardner-Johnson in the same light. And I'm like, well, CJ Gardner-Johnson's gone. So I think inside the facility, they're looking at Goddard as that relationship has probably come to an end because the two sides just aren't going to come to an agreement.
Yeah. I've gone that way a while ago, said, if you're 50-50 scale, I'm going on the low end that he'll be back of 50-50. And most of it has to do with that, and the fact that they want to make those difficult decisions now, so they're in position. All the ducks are in a row to seize the moment with Jalen Carter, etc. So I don't like it. I think it's going to be very difficult to replace. And I will say that Howie Roseman is stubborn, as he admits publicly. You're not giving him away. So, if you go back to Zach Ertz, it's the same thing.
Right.
They kept him into the season. Zach wasn't necessarily happy about it, and they eventually moved him. But if nobody's going to offer anything of value, or what the Eagles consider value, and that's probably a 4th round pick, and right now nobody's willing to go that high, and I know people don't get that, but you're trading for a contract as well. That might be the thing that saves them, at least for half the season until the trade deadline, because he's not giving them away.
No
but
doubt.
He'll take a future 4th round pick. It's not going to be this year. Might be 2028. He'll go way out to get.
They're not trading him before June 1, right? I mean, there's no.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
So we'll see what ends up happening on all that front. The other thing that was interesting, John, you kind of hit on it, but the cash over cap. We had some people when we talked about that conversation with CJ, and you talked about the upcoming contracts. We had some people say, "Oh, are the Eagles out of money?" I don't think so, because Jeffrey, yesterday he commented on the cash over cap, and he said, "I only know one way. That's not changing at all. We just have great players that are upcoming, and we have to be more forward thinking than we were in the past." In terms of the next 3 years. So I thought that was a good answer, but yeah, they've spent a lot of cash, and he knows that, and he knows he's got to spend a lot more. So you were on the money with that breakdown as well in the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade.
Nobody spent, anybody could check over the cap, Spotrac, anybody. Nobody spent more money over the past decade, more cash over the past decade than the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's what Jeffrey was talking about when he was talking about the only way I know, but they kicked the can down the road with that, and that's what he says, cash over cap, all the voidable years that we always talk about. Plus, he said it a number of times that he can't, when you draft well, it's this catch-22. Eventually, you got to pay them.
Yeah.
And they've drafted very well over the past number of years. And when those guys are up, they got to pass over into Zach Bond territory, Lane Johnson territory. And he also, by the way, Jeffrey, Zach Bond was the number 1 priority.
Yep. Jeffrey said that clearly.
So yeah, a lot of confirmations. So that's what happens when you win the Super Bowl. You can be more honest.
Yep, no doubt about it. Good stuff, everybody. 1000th episode of Birds 365 taking place right now. We appreciate all you guys being here. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the channel, and give Johnny Mac a big thanks, all right, for 1,000 episodes of the show. Let's go to some super chats. Mike Berghorst checking in. What's up, Mike? Hope you're doing good, brother. Congratulations on show number 1,000. You guys are great. Keep it up. Mike, thank you, man. I appreciate that, and I'm sure Johnny Mac does as well. Clark checks in. The NFL is far past soft. Ruined the sport. There you go, Johnny Mac.
Well, there's no question that the sport is watered down from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
So, the only question is which side of that argument are you on? I'm firmly in the camp, and Zander has heard this many times. Mike Gill is going to come up right now. Has heard this many times from me. If you're an adult and you make the decision to play this game, you should understand that there's going to be some injuries involved.
Right.
Zach Ertz, 100% if you play long enough is the injury rate in this league. And if you want to do that, fine. If you don't want to do that, you should probably look for another profession. And there aren't many professions where you can make the kind of money you do as a professional football player. So it's a cost-benefit analysis. But everybody who plays this game should be well aware that it's violent. And you can't legislate violence out of a violent game. You can water it down,
which is what they're doing.
Yeah, which is what they have done. But there's still concussions, which is the only thing people cares about. There's still catastrophic hits. There's still, like Ryan Shazier, as everyone brought up.
Yeah, right.
There's still the DeMar Hamlin stuff was just crazy. I mean, that was just, who knows what happened there. But
yeah, I don't know if that was anything football, was it? I mean, he had
that was just crazy. But
yeah.
It's a dangerous sport. It always has been and always will be.
Yep, Johnny Mac, I love the way you break down the hypocrisy of the people, regardless of what side they're on. So good stuff there. Let's get to Mike Gill joining us now in the 1,000th episode of Birds 365. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this football? What is it? Wednesday edition of the show, number 1,000 here on Birds 365. How you doing, Mike?
I did not know this was number 1,000. That's a pretty big milestone. It feels pretty interesting that I landed on the 1,000 episodes. I feel that some of this is the genesis of John and I's football at 4.
Yeah, locally.
Absolutely, it is 100%, Mike. There's no conspiracy there. That is the truth, brother.
I always point back to what Mike and I, for those who don't know, because we have a lot of non-local listeners, Mike and I have been talking football for many years on his radio station down the shore, which has been extremely popular and continues to be without me. So Mike deserves a ton of credit. But what we did prove is that people are willing to talk football 365 days a year, because Mike knows he's been in radio for a long time. You get these program directors and they're like, well, you can't talk about that. Yeah, you can. The people want to listen to it. So.
Well, yeah, I remember, John and I had done some spots when he was at Sports Network, maybe. Once a week, we did a spot on a Thursday, and he reached out and said, what if we did football every day? I said, you really think we have something to talk about every day? He said, yeah, I think we can make that work. And we said, all right, every day at 4:00, we'll talk football. We created Football at 4, which we still do on our show. But John and I did it for multiple years. It was the highest rated. It's still the highest rated segment on the show. But that has been the highest rated segment on our show since we really created that segment. And it's good that you guys are talking football. I can't believe this is 1,000 episodes. My God. A
lot of episodes, man. Isn't it, Mike?
It is a lot of episodes. 1,000. That's a lot. We didn't do quite 1,000, John, but 365 for multiple years. Maybe we did do 1,000.
Yeah, maybe we got close.
we probably did. If you go back, we probably did. But
we kind of, we do a Football at 4 segment still now. John does the football season with me virtually every day. So, we still have that synergy, but the fact that this is how big the Eagles are is a testament to the fans out there, that they do crave Eagles talk all season long.
The Eagles are a big part of it. I never said, the Eagles and Eagles fans are the biggest part of it, because if nobody cared, and look, there's the other sports in Philadelphia. I mean, there's tremendous devotion and tremendous interest when those teams are good. When they're not good, which has unfortunately been, especially this year with the Sixers and Flyers, as you know, Mike, it hadn't been a great season for each. And, the interest wanes. And the interest even wanes for the Phillies. The Phillies have been good in recent seasons, but when they're not good.
When the Phillies, in the Gabe Kapler era, they were competitively right there in the wild card chase. That building was half empty. I mean, let's be honest. They got Bryce Harper, and the team wasn't a playoff team, and people still didn't go to those games. It wasn't until they made that run in 2022, when they made the playoffs, because the 2022 season, that building was virtually half empty for most of the season. But when the Phillies made the playoffs and then the World Series, they have now been there and been out in full force, and give them credit for that. But nothing's quite like Eagles. I mean, in 1998, I was interning at WIP Radio at the time. And I said, this is pretty crazy. We have people calling in to dispute who the backup center should be. Think about that. This is the only town I can think of where when Matt Pryor signed last week, there was probably long discussions on where he fits on the line.
Oh yeah, we try to talk about every player on this show, every single player.
Yeah, so pretty wild.
And we got big numbers when guys like Harrison Bryant signed, and it's crazy. Which I yelled at the people because they didn't want to listen to Brandon Graham's retirement, but they want to see how a 1-year, $1.2 million player fits into the equation. That's and a lot of it is the success, don't get me wrong, but of the Eagles. But when they aren't as successful, and you go back to the collapse in 2023, there's still tremendous interest. In a lot of ways, there's more interest. So that's what Jeffrey Lurie's built. It was interesting, Mike. He got asked a question about his legacy. And he said, that's for other people to decide. I've already decided. This is certainly the best owner in modern Philadelphia sports. But now it's come to the position where if they can win a couple more, and Jeffrey's 73, you talked a little bit about Julian and the succession plan, but he's still in good health. He still said he feels like a kid. If he can get a couple more, his legacy of the best owner in Philadelphia goes national, I think. And he's one of the best owners.
As I was listening to him, I was watching him talk from his press conference this morning. I watched the YouTube of him from yesterday. And I had this overwhelming sense of how lucky we are that this guy owns the Eagles. Like, you don't think about that. Like, the team that you cheer for, that you're rooting for, that you cover, the owner of that team makes a big difference. And the fact that you landed this guy as your owner and is giving you 30 competitive seasons, as opposed to you could have one of these owners who just doesn't care, doesn't want to spend the money, doesn't care, doesn't make the right moves. You could be the Jets, with that ownership group there, who's just completely blind, oblivious to what's going on. You could have Mike Brown, who doesn't want to spend money. How fortunate Eagles fans are that Jeffrey Lurie, ended up being the owner of this team, because sometimes that's taken for granted, or you don't even think about who the ownership group is.
Yeah. I mean, Woody Johnson, you bring up the Jets. He was out there yesterday or the day before, one of the days down there. The NFLPA comes out with these report cards for the branch. He said he just refused to believe it because the Jets got a very low score. He was like, it's your players aren't happy because of the business you run.
Which he said he thought was a sham, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, now, look, there's a lot of employees that dislike their boss, and the Eagles got some low scores, but Jeffrey Lurie tends to address them. The plain stuff, I continue to not understand why they can't fix that, but there's certain things, childcare, they don't think the Eagles do a good job. There were certain things they got bad grades on compared to other teams, and their facilities kind of outdated, but has more to do with the city of Philadelphia. And even that, like, Jeffrey could have fled to the suburbs and gotten one of these beautiful new facilities anytime, basically. But he wants to stay in the city. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves.
How much longer do we think he's going to? Because he's
73.
He's 73, right? How much longer do we think he's going to be as prominent as the owner of this team before he starts to kind of vanish and turns it over to his son?
He did bring up Julian yesterday, but I think he's going to wait.
Not soon.
At least 7 years, I'd say, till he's 80.
Anytime you're that age, hell, when you're my age, we're all day to day, and health can take you out at any point. But if he's healthy, and he's healthy right now, and he said he feels like a kid, it's going to be a while. Julian's going to have to wait a while. And by the way, nothing against Julian. I'm sure he's a very smart person. It ain't going to be as good. It ain't.
Generally isn't.
No.
How many times has the son taken over and made it better? A handful, I guess. Vince McMahon?
Well, you could argue Triple H is doing a pretty good job. I don't know wrestling enough to know that, but Vince McMahon was a pretty good promoter in his day, wasn't he?
Well, I'm saying the father had it and made it was a regional thing, and then he took it
I think
he certainly outgrew what the father did.
Yeah,
that was more like just off the top, but like football wise, I know a lot of these are like legacy.
I always go because I'm a Yankees guy, which I get shit for, but who cares? Like
I didn't know that.
The Steinbrenner kids ain't their bother when it comes to trying to win.
No.
Maybe for making money, so it depends. What you're looking at, but for winning, and that's all fans care about. Yeah, I doubt it's going to be the same. So people should enjoy it while they can.
Yeah, we're in the era right now.
It depends. You guys anticipate him coming in and upsetting the apple cart and getting a new general manager that he wants and doing all those things?
I do. Yeah. I do.
Well, then I agree. If he wants to continue what
to me, it's natural that when you get a position, you want to bring in your own people.
Yeah, right. Makes sense.
And look, at that point, Howie might want to walk away anyway. He's going to have a very difficult time firing Howie Roseman, but at that point, Howie might say, all right, you do your thing. I've done my thing. And now whether it's Alec Halaby or somebody else, there's always going to be change.
Do they not get along? Do they not have a relationship? Like, how could you come in as the owner, a new owner under this regime and say, you know what, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the most successful general manager.
I didn't say that's the first thing. I just said it's natural to want to bring in your own people that you're close.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, it's natural to bring in your own people if you're somebody from outside the organization who doesn't. He obviously has to have some relationship with Howie. I mean, it's his father's right-hand man for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say he's going to move on. I'm just saying that's the history of this type of thing, is that, I know he's very close with Alec. I don't know his relationship with Howie. I know he's very close to Alec Halaby, or he was at one point.
Because Howie did comment on I think he was on a Up and Adams this week, and she asked him about, why he hasn't pursued other teams or something to that effect. And I've always wondered why teams have never reached out to him.
Nobody wanted him when there was an opportunity.
Yeah.
Now,
but in the last 8-year window here, there's been no team that has reached out, talked to him, tried to talk to him. Nothing.
You don't know that. Maybe there has. But Mike, what do you
report it? No reports.
Well, he's entrenched now. I mean, everybody knows their relationship. I mean, Howie, Jeffrey got the question yesterday about Howie's contract, because that's up as well after next year. And he just said very stable and secure. We never talk about contracts. Mm-hmm. And then he said, how long is he going to be around? Was the follow-up. A long time. I mean, he's not available. When somebody had a chance, anybody could have called. When he demoted him for Chip Kelly, anybody in this league could have called up and hired him. Anybody. The New York Jets specifically could have called him up, and he was a Jets fan growing up. They could have had him. Nobody wanted him at that time.
No, at that time, I understand. I'm talking in the last 8 to 5 year window in where we're at right now, from the 8-year 2017 to now. I know he's under contract, but that doesn't matter in this league. You reach out, you figure out a way to do it, you make a trade, you do something. I don't know. It's just crazy to me that we've never heard any reports that anyone has had any talks or interest, or that he's even had any interest in leaving.
What do you think they'd offer them, though, Mike? Like, how do you?
No idea.
He's already a top dog in Philly.
The only thing that
we were talking about this the other day, how in the NFL, other than really Dallas, maybe Kansas City now, but like not historically, there isn't like all the franchises are on almost equal plane. There's like not one glamour job over another one. Like, you go to GM of the Yankees, that's better than being the GM of the Rays. The Red Sox is better than the Indians or the Guardians. Like, there are jobs in baseball and in basketball that are more desirable. Sure, that the Eagles' job is probably more desirable than, I don't know. The Jaguar. Like, there are very few teams in the NFL, though, that are like okay, a notch below. Most of the teams are on a similar plane. So, like, is the Eagles' job any better than the Giants' job? Is it any better than the Commander job? Is it any better than the 49er job, the Raider job? Probably not. Like, there's not – all the moves are almost lateral.
It is. I would argue it is. It is.
Is it getting there? Is it now or was it before?
It is for his situation. Like, if Howie left, and by the way, I think the only way he would leave is if someone would give him a literal stake in a franchise and offered him ownership in the franchise.
Right. That's the only thing I see going up, right? I mean, how could you sweeten the deal? It would be that.
The one thing we talked about this on my show a while back. Like I think there was some weird report about the Jets possibly reaching out to him. Tannenbaum and him have a relationship. I think Tannenbaum gave him his first job. So I've always argued, like, Gino Auriemma is thought to be the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. And I said, this was 10 years ago. I was like, at some point, just dominating at that level, like, you have to go challenge yourself at another level. Like, go to the WNBA and see if you're the best there. And you know, like, if you're just at UConn kicking everybody's butt, I have a hard time with that. Like, you're not challenging yourself more. Does Roseman yearn for the challenge of saying the Jets are so woeful, I'm the guy that can get them something that they've never got before? That level of challenge is something that a Howie Roseman may say, that's what pushes me. Like, I've won 2 Super Bowls here. I want to go to Cleveland where they've never won.
Yeah, but that's a big risk, Mike. I would say he needs another Super Bowl to do that, because if you go and fail or fall on your face, you risk your legacy. I think you'd want to win at least another one. I don't think it's
about a legacy or anything like that as much, or failing. I don't think he's afraid of failing. I think, you know, successful people generally don't work that way. You know, fear of failure. But
it's the challenge.
Yeah, I would say that he's smart enough to realize he's not going to get the same opportunity somewhere else, the same rope. I talk about it all the time.
Right.
And Howie brings it up and doesn't like it, because when it's brought up, he doesn't bring it up. And he claims he's not on scholarship. Well, Jeffrey just confirmed, yeah, you are. You're not going anywhere. Like, everybody else in this league is GMing for their jobs, not Howie.
But Howie has done a good job to create that type of rope.
Well, right? Yeah, he's part of it. He's part of it.
A shitty team this year, he probably plays on scholarship.
But understand, when he got, and people call it a demotion, he wasn't demoted. He was given a better job title and a raise. Now, he was still pissed off because he loved the personnel part of it, and that's what he wanted to do. But how many guys get demoted and get a raise? That's how much Jeffrey wanted to keep him around. And he gave him the better title and all that kind of stuff. And eventually Chip failed. It was the worst decision of Jeffrey Lurie's career, which he admits, by the way.
Yeah, but he took the risk, thinking that Chip Kelly was something different.
Well, his convoluted thinking, if you remember, was, I got to give him this to prove, so he can prove he could fail. It doesn't make sense. You know, it's like, in other words, to prove it to Chip Kelly that you shouldn't be doing this, I'm going to let you do this. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And it was.
I think stashing Howie, though, maybe shows you that Lurie was never fully sold. You know?
Oh, it definitely. There's no debate about that. He gave him a raise to stash him.
Right.
And again, I still think if the Jets would have called then and offered him a GM job, he would have left. He would have took it to be a GM in the National Football League, because he had no idea he was coming back and seizing. You know, he might have thought Chip's going to fail. A lot of, you know, people can say that in hindsight, but, you know, the Eagles were a good team. I think people forget. You know, they made the playoffs with Chip. They won 10 games twice till it all fell apart. There was no guarantee he was going to return, but he did get a raise. So clearly Jeffrey wasn't pushing him out the door, because he was making some pretty significant money and got a raise on top of it. It was just a weird situation and doomed to failure. And it was Jeffrey's biggest mistake in 30 plus years as an owner.
No, it turned out to work out for the best.
And that's, sometimes the old 2 steps backward to take.
Yeah, you got to hit rock bottom to pull your
step
backward
to take 2 steps forward, that type of thing. And it worked out, to say.
Absolutely.
And by the way, you can make a strong argument that Howie Roseman wouldn't have turned into the Howie Roseman of today without that as well. Because he's talked about it numerous times. He went to talk to GMs from different sports, successful GMs. He talked to R.C. Buford. He talked to Brian Cashman. He talked to the guy who was running Manchester United at the time and tried to delve into their heads of what made them successful executives. And he's been different since Howie 2.0, I call it, has been much better than Howie 1.0. So if none of that happens, he probably doesn't get better as an executive. Butterfly effect type of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Which Doug Peterson wouldn't understand, but I digress. I'll tell them. I asked Doug Peterson about the butterfly effect once. He had no idea what I was talking about, Mike. None. Zero.
Is Doug Peterson's career is he done? What's his,
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
But
maybe because of what John just said.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, hey, football guys are football. There's a lot of shit. They're hyper focused on football, to the detriment of other stuff. So he's not the only one who wouldn't get that reference.
Yeah,
I don't think.
But you think he's done as a head coach or just coaching in general?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. He likes coaching. You never know with these guys. Some of them love coach. Look at what Frank Reich's doing, by the way.
Yeah,
going out to Stanford for 1 year
to be an interim coach. Yeah.
I mean, at some point, these guys just like coaching. So I can't say he's done as a offensive coordinator, but Chip's back as an offensive coordinator. So I can't say he's.
I don't think anybody looked at Doug's offenses like these great offenses. That was the thing. Like him as an offensive coordinator, he wasn't really the play caller in Kansas City. Then he was here. I don't know that people. He wasn't some innovative coordinator. That's all. No,
well, he wasn't considered Sean McVay. No,
yeah.
But either
I think he was looked more of like a guy who was like, the more of a head coach than a coordinator. Sometimes you get these guys who are coordinators better than head coaches and vice versa. He's probably a better head coach.
Well, he was the play caller though, as opposed to say Nick now.
Yeah.
He was the actual play caller. And I always I'm a big fan of CEO coaches. I always give Nick a lot of credit going back to 2021 and saying, this is a big job. I got more shit to do than just call plays and handing it off to Shane Steichen. I give him a lot of credit for that. Not many people do because they're obsessed with play calling, Yeah. And it's maybe I talk about it all the time on the show. Maybe the most overrated thing in football, play calling. I think, you do all that shit during the week. And you got your big menu of plays, and you're saying Tom Brady explained this the best. There's a clip out there. I talk about it all the time. Every football fan should watch it. And he just explains what you're doing when you call plays is you're dealing with probabilities. So you have all these formats. You have 3rd and short, 3rd and 5. You got 3rd and long, and you got this whole menu of plays. And then you say, what's the defense? All right, the defense usually does this on 3rd and long. You're calling probabilities. So we're going to run this. And sometimes as a quarterback, you got to go up to the line of scrimmage, and they're in an unscouted look. And that's where the Brady's turn into the Brady's. And you got to get your team into the best possible play to survive, maybe a bad look. But all that shit is gone over during the week. And then you have a slight feel for the actual game. And I thought Shane was really good at it. Yeah. Shane was better at it than Nick or Brian or even Kellen. He's better at it. But I always get a kick out of you can make a strong argument that at least from a well-rounded perspective, Mike, that Brian Johnson's offense was better than last year's offense. But they won, and Kellen Moore's the head coach, and Brian Johnson got fired.
Well, I mean, Kellen Moore, the passing game, I think because of the talent that you possess on at the skill spots for the passing game, it's perplexing as to why that area of the offense hasn't taken off. Because your run game is so good, you would think that would only help make the pass game better. Or are they so insistent on the run that brings the passing numbers down? It's still not this high flying area sold. It still doesn't like flow quick, bang, 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 1, 2, 3. It's still very clunky at times. They take a lot of shots down the field. It's just not a very fluid passing attack. But their run game, you would say, was better than the year before. Obviously, they had a more talented player as well that helped with that. So, but both passing attacks, you're thinking you got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and we all hold them in such high regard, and yet you're always saying, why is this passing game just pedestrian?
I don't know, though, because Lurie had an interesting comment on that yesterday because somebody asked him, hey, did this season change your perspective on always wanting that high-flying passing offense? And his response was pretty good. Well, if we didn't have a good passing attack, we wouldn't have won the Super Bowl because they shut down Saquon Barkley. So, I think because they answered the bell when they needed to, they're in a different frame of mind versus if they didn't get over the top, Mike, and then you look at the season and say, hey, where did it go wrong? You look at that 29th and you're like, what the hell? We got to get better. But because they answered it, I don't really know if they think it's a big problem inside the organization. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I thought Lurie's a comment on it was interesting.
No, and that's it's definitely a perceptive thing as the team to say we don't have to do this, but we can when we need to. Right. And it's the element of just because you haven't doesn't mean you can't. Right.
And they prove that to be true. It's one thing to say that; it's another for it to be proven true.
Yeah, all throughout a season, we watch games every week, and then what we see, we make these assertions based on what we've seen. And yet, just because you haven't done something yet doesn't mean that you still won't or can't. And they're saying, I guess, hey, we don't have to throw the ball 45 times, but if we need to, we can certainly do it. We saw that. What was that? The Pittsburgh game where they came out and were like, was that what you all wanted to see? We can do it if you really want us to, but we don't have to. So we're not going to show that until we need it in a bigger moment.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's in hindsight, that's the way it worked out. But I think, even the players were, and you saw it again, AJ got most of the criticism for it, but Devontae would say the same thing. Jalen would say the same thing. In fact, Jalen, there's many quotes with Jalen. Jalen's like, sometimes if you don't use it, it's not there. And I think everybody was struggling with that. And then they proved it, basically, as Jeffrey pointed out. Kansas City probably did the best job on Saquon Barkley the entire season. And then all of a sudden, the passing attack showed up. But what I go full circle, Mike, the difference between the 2023 offense and the 2024 offense is not Saquon Barkley. That's what made it different. It was the defense.
Well, the defense on this team obviously was much better. That's for
exactly.
Sure.
If you put that number one defense with that 2023 offense, I think Brian Johnson's the head coach.
Yeah, that defense was putrid in 2023. And you can say that, that put the offense in many terrible situations. Yeah. And that offense, you were constantly playing from behind, so you had to throw the ball a lot more. And it was that 2023 season is one that there should be a 30 for 30 on. What happened to the 2023 Eagles?
I think it might be more simple. I think John is right. If you got Vic Fangio the year before. Well, yeah, but if they remember how it played out when Vic went to Miami? It was he was going to come to the Eagles. The timing didn't work because Gannon was kind of, nobody knew. I don't remember exactly how it played out. But
I don't even go down that.
If that unfolded,
and by the way, I'm right about that as well. Sorry.
Well, if that unfolded a little differently, John, maybe 23 would have been a different story.
Possible. I mean, they didn't have very good linebackers. Their safeties were not great.
Yeah,
So
but they would have had Vic Fangio. I mean, you could have came into this season and said your linebackers weren't great. That was our biggest
Oh, we
concern
did.
up
We
till
did.
September 5th was that the linebackers stink on this team.
Do we think he was turning Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham into a duo? I'm not sure. Terrell Edmonds and
Hey, you know
Rashad
what?
Evans.
I don't put it above him because Oren Burks, you're telling me you could argue Nick Morrow's had a better career than Oren Burks up until 5 games last season.
Yeah, and I'll guarantee he would have made them better than the version they were that year, right? I mean, I don't know if he would have made them Zach Ball.
Okay, it's possible, but James Bradbury also had a really rough year. Your safety play, you had Blankenship got hurt somewhere in there. Evans was in and out. Edmonds was in and out. Fired was here.
How much is it all tied together?
Yeah,
it very well could be. I think the moral of the story is their personnel on defense in 2024 was significantly better than it was in 2023 at least 5 spots on the field. Plus you had, Jalen Carter was a rookie that year. He had a really good 10-game stretch and he kind of fell off a little bit. I'm
not saying they would have been the number 1 defense, but they would have been acceptable. I mean, you could argue
I agree with that. I think they would have been acceptable. I'll give you that one.
They would have been. They were deeper on the defensive front in 2023.
Well, that's all part of the story is, they had Fangio in the building. They wanted him. And then the Gannon thing happened, and then they lost Fangio. They had to go to somebody outside the organization. The defense, though, was a part of why they were 10-1, right? I mean, they had some moments in that 10-1
Yeah, they did. I think
they played the Dolphins on that, was it a Sunday night or Monday night? The Dolphins had been blasting everybody, and they shut them down completely that night.
Oh, I thought they were very unfair to Sean Desai. Now they're in the building. Clearly, Sean Desai was not ready to be a defensive coordinator. So, I mean, they know better than anybody, but they should have stuck it out for the year. They would have been better. They wouldn't have had the colossal collapse late when they moved to Matt Patricia. If they just would have stayed the course, it still would have been bad. I'm not trying. Still have to move on, but I thought that was the biggest mistake. But yeah, like Bradbury's a perfect example. Like, look, he collapsed. Vic ain't playing him in the slot. I mean, he's a better player with Vic Fangio, just from the standpoint of he knows how to play. Vic would have taken advantage. He's the perfect guy to explain. I mean, he may have not been a second-team All-Pro like he was the year prior. That was an outlier, but no way he collapses under Vic Fangio. No way. 0.
Most likely, I would agree. Yes, 100%.
And think about what that team could have been if they were better defensively.
Yeah, because we look at that team as a colossal failure almost, as opposed to a team that was once 10-1, coming off of making the Super Bowl the year before, and like not letting that Super Bowl loss deter them. 10-1, and by the way, they're 10-1, and I think this gets lost in this. They won games against Buffalo, at Kansas City. Yeah. I mean, they had some wins against quality teams that year. They lost at the end of the season to bad teams and looked bad doing so. Arizona, the Giants, I mean, they were losing to bad teams. They beat good teams. It is the most perplexing season I think I've ever watched in my entire life.
Yeah, and to John's point, a top 8 offense to boot too. And Brian Johnson got pushed out of here like he was 31st in the league. I mean, interesting to look at. Mike, I wanna run this by you, even though I don't want to run this by you. I have to.
Is it a tush push question?
Yeah, what'd you think? They tabled it. Onward to May. Just give me a brief thought, Mike, on it.
All right, so I explained it this way, and I have listeners on my show were like, so you're an Eagles fan and you want them to get rid of the tush push. I said, no, that's not what I said. As somebody who likes the Eagles and watches the Eagles and wants them to win games, and I don't want them to get rid of the play because it works for them. They do it well. For whatever reason, no one other than Buffalo does it. So I am for the play staying. If you ask me as a football fan and someone who covers the game, I think the play is unfair advantage to the offense. So if you take the Eagles out of this and say, hey, here's the football play, take the jerseys off, watch the play, what do you think? I think it's an unfair advantage for the offense to have 3 to 4 players being able to physically push the ball carrier forward when the defense cannot also push back the other way. You are giving an unfair competitive advantage. The thing, and I think John and I have talked about this on my show, maybe even here, that is being done here is these teams are going to the competition committee and they are saying the play is unsafe. That's not a competitive advantage. You need to go to the competition committee and say there's a competitive advantage problem here, not a health risk, because the health risk is not for the competition committee to decipher. The competition committee is supposed to say, why is this play a competitive advantage? No one is explaining it the right way. You can't have 3 players physically give leverage to the ball carrier. It makes it an unfair advantage for the offense. Do I want to see the play out for the Eagles' sake? Of course not. But as a football observer, I think the play gives the offense an unfair advantage.
Yeah, I think there's so much, but I'm with you at the core of it. I that's exactly what I said to Zander. I mean, number one, it's not fair to the defense. That's nothing to do with the Eagles.
So if these teams, John, would have gone to the competition committee and said, we are proposing to ban the tush push because we feel that it's a competitive advantage to the offense, I think that would have been looked at more seriously.
Well, I think
the injury part of it. And then Jeffrey Lurie zings them yesterday by saying, we run the tush push play because we find it to be a safer alternative to the quarterback sneak.
Well, Jeffrey's very smart. And one thing I noticed right away is that he left open the possibility for him to change his mind. And he was talking about the safety part of it, because where I think most of the misinformation comes, and most of it's the politics of the NFL. Remember who they're trying to convince. They're not trying to convince the competition committee. They're trying to convince the 32 owners. And how do you convince the 32 owners to remove a play you want removed from the game if you're Roger Goodell? It's pretty evident that he wants it removed from the game. The easiest way to do that is to scare them. What do you scare them with? Legal liability, player safety.
Yeah.
They've already been through it. They got to pay billions of dollars. The thing that gets through to the owners quicker than anything is taking money out of their pockets.
True.
That's why they do this.
So they are talking about not banning the play, but banning the ability to push or tug the player.
A lot of people don't realize, and Roger Goodell confirmed this yesterday, and this is what I advocated. Prior to 2005, 2004, it was illegal to push players.
Right.
Yeah, but if the advantage is so unfair, why aren't more people doing it successfully?
Well, there was an interesting point about this that somebody brought up. I can't remember who it was, but many people say because of Jalen Hurts being physically bigger, Josh Allen being physically bigger, that when the running backs and the tight ends jam their shoulders and push them forward, they're able to withstand the blow more than another, a smaller. I think hit from behind, and he might actually. That's where the injury situation can come in, where the running back comes in at full force, runs and pushes that pile forward, and then he actually hurts his own quarterback.
The mechanics of that play, I think people get bogged down. I'm in favor of removing pushing from the game entirely, so it's easy to see it down the field.
Quick, John, the defense is not allowed to push.
No,
you can't be a linebacker, put 2 hands on the nose tackle, and then run and jam him forward. You cannot do that. So they can't push back the other way. So people who are saying, why can't the defense? They're not allowed. The defense cannot use leverage to gain an advantage on the play. But you're saying the offense can. That's where the competitive advantage comes in for the offense.
Well, and by the way, to the point of your point about being an Eagles fan and how successful it is, even that last year and I looked up the numbers. First try there's context to this, because when the Eagles are in 3rd and short, for instance, they often they run the tush push with the understanding they'll be doing back-to-back tush pushes. But that said, the team was far less effective on first try tush pushes, 38 of 49 this past season, under 80%, than its last season with a first try traditional quarterback sneak in 2021, the last year they didn't run it, when they were 92.9% successful. And if you want to go back to 2017 with Carson Wentz, they were 100%. They were literally perfect on a traditional quarterback sneak. It's not even. We lost. You muted yourself, Mike.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
There we go.
Sorry, I had a sneeze. We played a play yesterday, Dallas Goedert, and the audio of Goddard is talking about how he physically pushed the guy forward and like helped that play into the end zone for the touchdown. And it's like at that point, the play looks like it should be basically forward motion, stop dead. And that's where Goddard comes in and just blows the play up by pushing the guy forward. That is where I think you have an unfair advantage. Now, the defense cannot also push back the other way. Like they're not allowed to do that. It's just like when you go to try to block the field goal or an extra point, the linebacker can't use leverage on the player in front of him to try to get extra jump. You can't put your hands on another player. So I don't understand how they let the offense do that. But for whatever reason, I think they're going to take that part out of the game. You know, they're tabling this to get the verbiage.
Yeah, exactly. They're tabling it to rework which was poorly put together. I said that from day one. It was never going to pass. But they want the play. Roger Goodell wants the play removed from the game, not the play. He wants pushing, as he said. He wants to go back to the 2004 rule. He wants pushing as a whole removed from the game, and I agree with him. Doesn't mean he's going to get the 24 votes, but the way to get the 24 votes is to scare them over safety issues.
Now,
he's a good politician.
People, the defense tackling the ball carrier and pushing the ball carrier is different than gaining leverage, giving leverage to another defensive player on your team. Just to clarify that for people.
Yeah.
People are saying like you can gang tackle and push the ball carrier back. Yeah, you can. Once he has the ball in his hand, you have to try to tackle, and that's the goal. But you can't push your defensive lineman.
You can't gain leverage. You use the right term.
Leverage
that's
pushing him forward. Yes.
Yeah,
I had this yesterday went down the road of why do the defense and offense should there be different? Like why is it unfair for the defense? You know, they can't throw the ball. I was like, really, they can't throw the ball. The defense can't throw the ball. Yes, there's inequities on the offense and defense. You can't give the offense, you're giving leverage by saying they can physically push the ball carrier forward, and the defense cannot physically push their defensive players forward to help make that inertia stop. Raheem Morris, basically, he's a defensive minded head coach, and he admitted we can't stop the play. So people are like, well, if you can't stop it, that's your problem. He said we can't stop it. Why? Because the offense has an unfair advantage. They can push the ball carrier forward, and we can't do anything to stop that.
Well, then, yeah, and then that's why I don't want to make it about one play, because then you go, well, nobody else can do it. And, you know, a lot of teams can't do it because they don't.
Which is true.
And Jeffrey brought up, well, yeah, they don't have a quarterback who can, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but but isn't that the point? Then the unfair advantage isn't in the play; it's in the player, and that's what football's all about.
The unfair advantage is in the pushing everywhere.
But if it only gives you an advantage if you have the right player, then
it gives you an advantage. If Devontae Smith is downfield and you're pushing, it gives you a huge advantage as an offensive.
Yeah, but I'm talking about strictly from why other teams are not completing this play at the same.
Well, you're talking about one specific play. I'm trying to take it away from one.
You're saying from the game as a whole. I understand.
Yeah. The interesting part about this is that the other team that runs it to some level of success and at a high volume is Buffalo, and they're against the play.
They're against the play, and I get because a lot of people got on Sean McDermott. What Sean McDermott was doing is echoing what the league wanted.
Right. Well, McDermott is saying, listen, I am representing the competition committee, and therefore I have to take my head coaching hat off here, even though the play works for us. Yes. I think it's a health and safety risk. That's what he's saying.
People really don't get the politics going on here. That's the
But
problem.
I think
There's a lot
McDermott's team being able to run the play successfully and him being against it for health and safety reasons is the politics here. Here's the guy who benefits from the play. He's like the Eagles. It works. Stop us. You can't stop us. We have Josh Allen, and we have 2 running backs pushing Josh Allen forward. You're not stopping that play. And yet he's out there saying, well, as a member of the competition committee, we have to get rid of this play.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Lurie left it open, man. He did. And he's a very smart guy. And he said, I think for everybody, including myself, especially health and safety is the most important part when evaluating any play. What does that do? He said, I'm very open to whatever data exists. You know, right now he's in the mode of it's successful for my team. And even though it wasn't as successful, which he also admitted, and I pointed out the numbers as people think it was, to this date, there's no data that shows it's not a very safe play, which Dr. Alan Sills, who's the NFL's chief medical officer, said, yeah, it's not about now, it's about future. And there's a whole industry, for people that don't know, that has nothing to do with football and insurance, called risk assessment. And they do these data modelings, and the NFL is going to put this shit together.
Yeah.
And it's going to be full of crap. I'm the first raising my hand. But Jeffrey Lurie is going to get on board. That's my prediction. Because he's going to look at his other 31 owners.
Well, it's not going to matter. They're going to change the wording of the play to where you can push and pull the players. That's where this is going to get to. So when it goes to vote in May in Minneapolis at the next meetings, it's going to be not a health and safety risk. It's going to be the play. They'll be no longer able to aid and push the ball carrier forward.
Oh, I agree with you, Mike, but they'll still tag it with health and safety.
Yeah.
Because it's the easiest way they can get owners to vote, because all they care about is legal indemnity.
But that's where the hypocrisy comes in so big, because if you're going to put it in that microscope, you can take literally any play in football, run it through the same thing, and come up with the same result.
Yes, but here's the difference. Here's one very, very key difference. Anything that's collectively bargained, like 18 games, they're off the hook. This is not collectively bargained.
Okay, that's a big
In fact, the difference here is now it's public that they could have taken it out of the game. They were discussing to take it out of the game. So if something catastrophic happens,
right,
the first thing a lawyer is going to do is say, you could have took this out of the game. You had every opportunity to take this out of the game. And they will lose billions of dollars in their minds. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you're right. But anyway, John, Mike,
I'll get you out on this. Here you go. The NFL is going to have a Christmas Day triple header this year.
Yeah.
Do Eagle fans want to play on Christmas? I have a poll on my X platform right now. 63% are going one way. 37% are going the other way. Is it ho, 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 yes, or bah, humbug?
I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess it's a bunch of no's.
63% say bah, humbug, no.
Yeah.
No Christmas.
I say no for selfish reasons, because it's a work day and I'm a Christmas guy.
Yeah, I think everybody.
I like to hang with my family.
Well, I think people want to watch football. They don't want to have the, you got to do a lot of shit on Christmas, most people with their families. And you can't.
Okay, then I'll ask you, John. This is the Super Bowl champions. You saw Kansas City's schedule last year. They were on Black Friday. They played every day of the week, it seemed like. Will the NFL put the Eagles on Christmas Day?
There's
three games on Christmas this year.
I think so. 2 of them are going to be on Netflix, one on Amazon.
One's on Amazon Prime, yes.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah, ho, 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 get ready. The Eagles are going to play on Christmas. That will be my prediction.
Yeah. I mean, they're a marquee team.
Yeah.
You know,
And
for
the
all
Super Bowl
for all the people that
Well,
think
by the way,
that,
get ready for this. Super Bowl champions playing. Last year, they played a lot of 1 o'clock regular games because of what
they
happened
only
the
had
year
4
before.
or 5, right? I thought they only had 5.
yeah, they had a lot for them. They had a lot
right.
for them. Yeah.
This year, get ready for Sunday nights, Monday nights, Thursday nights,
yeah.
Black Fridays. That Chiefs schedule last year was brutal. And, you know, we talked to Colin Thompson about this, how regimented football players are and how different the week is for them when they have to play a primetime game. And when you have to play multiple primetime games, how many times through the course of the year that takes you kind of out of your rhythm and routines. And people don't realize, like, if you play a Monday night football game and you're in, say, San Francisco, you don't get home until whatever time in the morning, the lack of sleep that you get, and then start your week back over. And that doesn't get factored in a lot of times to these teams that have Super Bowl success or stuff like that. Why, the schedule does matter a little bit to these guys.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up for this reason. And at Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform, subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. That's at Mike Gill Show. 97.3 ESPN South Jersey down the shore. Does a tremendous job there. I'm glad you brought it up. Of all the misinformation that I've tried to explain on this show about that tush push topic, the biggest part of it is that the league doesn't like the Eagles. The league loves the Philadelphia Eagles. Loves the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's where it shows up. That's where it shows up. They love any successful team that generates interest. They love
and doesn't get in any trouble. They haven't had a player in trouble since 2020, something like that.
No,
Are they the longest running team without an arrest?
Big Dom. Give a hat tip to Big Dom. That's his job.
Big Dom. Well done. Good stuff, Mike. Appreciate you joining in. Make sure you guys go follow him on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel over there at Mike Gill Show. Mike, appreciate it, brother.
Scrabble, anybody?
I was wondering where you were sitting today. You're in a new room.
Yeah.
Got a little black light poster over here. About to partake.
Nice. Is this your new office area, or are we going to see more of this? No.
Maybe it's a little quiet. I have somebody's outside cutting a tree down, so it was louder downstairs. So I came upstairs today.
Nice. All right, Mike.
I noticed people noticing my new room today.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Thanks, man.
Thanks, bud.
All right, there's Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Well done by Mike Gill. Good conversation there. I had my question on the tush push. I wanted to go quick, and there you go. You get into a rabbit hole, but I thought Mike brought up some good points. John, one thing I want to bring up to you that Cilio brought up yesterday, which I thought was pretty good. And you're a football historian yourself, the Ice Bowl, and he brought up the irony of the Green Bay Packers being the team to introduce this after the Eagles just won a Lombardi trophy, and it was their coach, Vince Lombardi, with Bart Starr, who ran a tush push to win the 1967 championship game. I thought that was an interesting reference by Big Sills on the tush push combo.
Yeah, I have to look at the play. I know it was a lead from Jerry Kramer. I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
I don't know if it was fully a tush push, but I know they were 2 feet away.
I think that was a hell of a block by Jerry Kramer. I don't think that was a tush push, but I got to look at the play again. Yeah, I've been steadfast. I mean, there's some plays I don't like. The aesthetic part of it is the dumbest part. Like, I hate the bubble screen. Anybody watch it? I hate it. It's ugly. I don't advocate to remove it from the game.
Yeah. I think Lurie had a comment on the bubble screen too, didn't he? Yesterday? Or wasn't the bubble screen, but it was, the aesthetic thing. And he's
the aesthetic
screens is more better than
I think anybody who says remove it because it's not pretty, and it's not pretty, but I think that's dumb. I just think, pushing shouldn't be involved in the game. Period. I've been that way since they brought it back. I've been it before the Eagles used it. I'd go back to the Bush. I thought that was a catastrophe. I thought that was an injustice for the defense. And that had major implications at the time for, I don't know if they won the national championship that year. They might have. Southern California. Since that day, I'm like, what is this? Why is this here? And I don't know why they removed it. They deleted it from the rule book. The reason why is they said it was difficult to legislate down the field. I guess because officials can't run. Some of them can, as you saw.
Yeah, you've seen a couple of them.
Yeah, really. Some of them can really go now. But back then, it was just dumb. It was always dumb. And now it's become a problem. And you gotta rewind. And that's what Roger Goodell wants to do. I'm not I don't rubber stamp Roger Goodell decisions, but in this one, I think he's right. I think it should be removed from the game. It has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Eagles. And by the way, I've said it from day one as well. It won't even affect the Eagles. They will still be the best quarterback sneak team in the NFL, or number 2, depending on what Buffalo does on a particular year because of Josh Allen. It's got to do with the players.
Right.
And I know Nick says we work at this and blah, blah. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Guess what? If, you had Case Keenum, or you wouldn't be working on the play. You're working on the play because of the quarterback you have. You're working on the play. Even Patrick Mahomes, who doesn't like running quarterback sneaks, and that's a great quarterback. You wouldn't be working on the play. It's got to do with the quarterback number 1, and then I'm not even going to say number 2, number 1A, the best offensive line in football. And it's been this way. Again, Carson was a big physical guy. They didn't run quarterback sneaks with Nick Foles, or nearly as frequently. He's a big guy, but he's just, not great at it.
Right.
It's not always just about size, but Tom Brady, on the other hand, he should be, people look at Tom Brady, he's the best quarterback sneaker of all time, just because he bound the bubble and successful at it, had a feel, had a savvy. I always bring up Brad Johnson was phenomenal at it. Certain guys have a natural feel for it. They're patient. A lot of guys go too quick. And I'm talking about traditional quarterback.
Yeah, right.
You got to be patient. Sometimes you got to take a step left or right. You got to find where that bubble is. And some guys have a feel for it. I think Jalen has a feel for it. He certainly has the power to just push people as well. By himself. They were, again, 92.9% in 2021 before they ever even used it.
Yep.
It's not even going to affect this team.
Good stuff there. Johnny Mac, we're going to have BLG coming up soon here on Birds 365. Let's get to our commercial break. BLG checking in now. We're going to get to our commercial break, then we'll be right back. BLG coming up next on the 1000th episode of Birds 365. We'll be right back.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, Go Birds.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365, our 1000th episode here on JAKIB Sports. On the show, joined now by Brandon Lee Goutman of Bleeding Green Nation. Make sure you guys follow him at Brandon Goutman. BLG, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the show.
Congrats on 1,000. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, BLG. Never, we're all day to day, but I'm shocked I got to 1,000. So it's something to stick in the back pocket. But you've been a big part of it, and I always enjoy when you jump on the show. I got to tell you, I'm tush pushed out, but I got to give you an opportunity to talk about the tabling. Obviously, they're going to bring it up in May. Clearly, Roger Goodell wants pushing removed from the game back to 2004. Ultimately, I think that's where we're going, and I don't think it's going to affect the Eagles very much at all. I think they're still going to be the best quarterback sneak team in the NFL, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think we've been tush pushed out for a long time because we keep hearing the same things and talking about the same things. I think if they are going to change anything, if you're making those wide spread changes that you just referred to there, John, that makes the most sense to me if you're going to do it, because then that would indicate you clearly have a problem with the premise more than a specific team doing it, which is the problem, I think, especially with the Packers proposal and a lot of the discourse around it. And it's just very disingenuous in terms of like, no, there isn't health and safety concerns, but there could be. It's like, well, okay, that's not a good reason to ban something because there might be. So it sounds like we're probably going to get some kind of change coming up in May, the next round. But I agree that I don't really think it matters too much to the Eagles anyway, in terms of they're still going to be good at it. Other than, I guess they get like kind of the crown jewel achievement of they were so good that the NFL had to change the rules against them.
Yeah, they can dub it the Jalen Hurts rule, even if it might not be or the Eagles rule. They will be able to do.
Yeah,
that.
Take pride in that.
Yeah,
you remember the format? I always bring up. You remember the Patriots and Ravens formation game, BLG, where Bill Belichick looked at the rule book and he was the one who figured out, hey, I can put a tight end at left tackle. They won't know that the slot receiver is ineligible. And John Harbaugh was going nuts on the side. He's like, this is illegal. And it wasn't illegal. But guess what? In that instance, the NFL changed the rule that offseason. They're like, all right, you got us. There's a loophole, but we don't want this in the game, and they changed it. I go back to 2004 when pushing was not allowed. I don't know why did they delete that from the rule book? They claimed because it was too difficult to officiate. But I'm with you, disingenuous. The health and safety thing is just, I always say, remember who they are trying to convince. And they're trying to convince owners. And what convinces owners more than anything else? If you take away their money, and how do they get their money taken away? Well, they get sued. So you throw in this bullshit health and safety risk assessment. Oh, nothing's happened yet, but it might happen. And then you get the 8 extra votes. That part of it's just the political part of it, in my estimation. The easiest way to sway owners is with their pocketbooks.
All right.
Yeah, I guess injury guarantees could kick in too. But yeah, I mean, it's all very silly, and I can't believe somehow. I mean, it is the silly part to me. And this isn't a new point; it's been brought up by many others. But the fact that this was a huge topic of conversation in 2022, it became less of one when the Eagles collapsed at the end of 2023. There was not this massive effort like there is. Obviously, there is this offseason last year, and then they went in the Super Bowl, and now it's a big issue again. So the idea that it's not singling out or it's not targeting a single team is just, ridiculous to me.
Well, I think that part of it is it was just so poorly crafted by the Packers. And I don't know why they even put it up because clearly it wasn't going to pass. But when they have something that isn't going to pass, but Roger Goodell wants it to pass, they table it. And then they're going to rework it. And then they're going to expand it to, I think, the 2004 rule and make it more all-encompassing. But yeah, to your point, BLG, I don't know why they just didn't do that originally. Like the competition committee could have done it. So I agree with that part. And I think that's the part where people get off track because they think it's about the Eagles. And one thing I know about the NFL, and this bothers me about Eagles fans, and I know I'm on an Eagles show and I got 1,000 shows doing an Eagles show. But this mentality that the league hates the Philadelphia, they love the Philadelphia Eagles. They love the Philadelphia Eagles because of the passion and the success. They love any successful team that can draw money and draw TV ratings. And evidenced by this, since the turn of the century, BLG, you know this, no team has been on national TV more than the Philadelphia Eagles, except the Dallas Cowboys, which are, yes, the league loves the Cowboys, but the league loves the Philadelphia Eagles. They love them.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that. I will say I don't think the Packers love the Eagles. I don't
think anybody likes the champions. Everybody's a little bit jealous.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Sean McDermott, I'm sure, has an axe to grind with, the Philadelphia too. So it's just kind of funny. Those are some of the power players. And then Sean McVay, I think, as well. Not necessarily.
Well, in the case of McDermott, I'm going to give him a pass because what he's doing, and I've said this pretty consistently, he's just part of the competition. He's giving the he's doing the NFL's dirty work. Like he's saying, this is what the league wants, so I'm on board. Remember, the only other team somewhat successful, and people can bring up at the largest moment, the biggest moment of their season, they weren't. But overall, they've been very successful with the tush push as the Buffalo Bills because of Josh Allen. And it's a good play for his team, and he took the NFL's because he's being an NFL house organ. He's saying, this is what the NFL wants. I'm on board. So I give Sean McDermott a little bit of a pass. They've actually been successful with it, Buffalo. Yeah, overall, not in the playoffs, but overall they've been successful. But we're tush pushed out. Let's start talking about football. Jeffrey Lurie, I thought he was very honest, BLG. Maybe winning does that because I think Howie's been very honest in this offseason. A lot of good stuff from Jeffrey Lurie. Just your 2 or 3 biggest takeaways. Anything surprise you from what he said?
I would say like the fervor of the tush push support. I know we're not going to talk about that, but just the fact that he came out so strongly for that, I thought that was noteworthy. I guess another big theme, and I got this in my mind after talking to Jody last night, was that he kept talking about winning big, and I don't think it's almost like to me like, you don't want to use the dynasty word, especially if you're not there yet. But I do think that is a focus, and there's been a lot of talk about how the spending has gone down, but like I don't think that, and he did push against that, which I thought was noteworthy as well. I don't think just because they're saving on some cash spending this offseason that he's cheaping out all of a sudden. I think those moves are consistent with a larger vision, which is going to be him paying a lot of young players in the future years to come here. And I don't doubt that he's going to pony up the cash at that point when he needs to. But yeah, I mean, I think really this whole offseason, when you go back to the honesty of it all, like you're talking about, John, the Eagles were afforded that because they've won this second Super Bowl in so many years that I think they're able to get away with some of that honesty a little bit more than they would have to in other seasons where you kind of have to do more of a sell job.
Yeah, I'm with you. 3 Super Bowls in 8 years, 2 Super Bowl championships, so many NFC East titles, so many NFC championship games in the Jeffrey Lurie era. I think it's pretty clear by far, this is the best owner in Philadelphia sports, certainly in the modern era. How about nationally? What do you think, Jeffrey Lurie? He was asked about his legacy. If he wins a couple more,
yeah,
we're in pretty rare air as an owner, if you're Jeffrey Lurie. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I would make the case for that, especially because of how the Eagles have won. In terms of this isn't about the Patriots having either the best quarterback or one of the best quarterbacks ever, or same kind of thing for the Chiefs here. Like that's great and all, and obviously I think Robert Kraft and the Hunt family, they deserve some level of credit, but at some level also they kind of had the fortune to work with a really amazing quarterback. And Jeffrey Lurie has won multiple Super Bowls here with different quarterbacks, with different head coaches. So my point is, I think it's a little bit more about the ecosystem here than it is with some of these other teams that are having a lot of success, as much as it is again, a key player or a key coach. Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni obviously part of it here, but I think ultimately Howie Roseman is really the big tie, between these 2 Super Bowls that they have won. And I think by and large part, Howie Roseman is an extension of Jeffrey Lurie, and Howie Roseman and what he's able to do in terms of the patience he's afforded doesn't exist without Jeffrey Lurie. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand. So I would say relative to other teams having Super Bowl success, I think Jeffrey Lurie is a big part of that and deserves a lot of credit.
I thought the comments that he made on Howie were interesting, and then obviously Julian Lurie was brought up as well. How do you see all that playing out, BLG? We talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, where I don't know if it's going to be quite the same. I don't know how long it will be. It might be another 7, 8, 9, 10 years, depending on how Jeffrey Lurie wants to go. But your thoughts on his comments on Howie, and then just how Julian ties into that mix in the future.
Yeah. Look, I think Howie wants to do this for a very long time. I mean, he has said as much, and he's 50 or so.
I think he's 49, Howie.
Yeah, there's no reason why he can't do this ostensibly for a long time. I think Jeffrey Lurie wants to do this for a long time too, basically. I don't, the way I think about it is, there was so much talk kind of after Chip and before they had even won the Super Bowl in 2017 that Jeffrey Lurie was getting more involved than he had been in the past. And we say that's the case, and then they have success. Why would he want to be any less involved when not only are they winning, but he also feels like, and he is a big part of why they're able to have all of this success and only continue to add to that legacy with the opportunity that they have in front of them. I just don't think there's any motivation for him to step aside or anything like that. I think he wants to keep this going as long as he's alive and in good health. I think that's the plan.
He admitted basically it's coming, the contract extension for Nick Sirianni. No surprise, but I think when people see that contract extension, because of what's going on elsewhere, it's going to be very hard not to make Nick Sirianni the highest paid head coach in the history of the NFL when it comes down. Does that create added expectations for Nick Sirianni because, look, I always say high expectations are not a bad thing. If you're successful, and I maintain we talk about those 3 Super Bowls in 8 years. I think that when they lost, they were the better team in. And think about if they had 3 in 8 years. Think about where those expectations would be. But if you don't reach those expectations, we saw it with Brian Johnson. We saw it with Sean Desai. There will be scapegoats. Is there sort of unintended consequences of the success and the contract? He's got to keep doing it, is what I'm trying to say. Agree? Or does he have a little bit of dispensation?
Yeah, I think he's bought himself, some level of job security, but that just doesn't really exist in the NFL typically over a very large extended period of time. I mean, Doug Peterson obviously won a Super Bowl with the Eagles and then made the playoffs the next 2 years. Then they miss it 1 year. And for as much as the Eagles like to talk about how the COVID year was, this, anomaly and tough on them, well, Doug Peterson had to answer for that. He didn't get that benefit of the doubt in that regard. So I think when you have the 5th highest winning percentage of all time, which is crazy, which Nick Sirianni does, only behind the likes of Guy Chamberlain, John Madden, Vince Lombardi, and George Allen. I think he has raised the bar here to expect big things, for high expectations here. But I think winning the Super Bowl and having gone to 2, which Doug certainly didn't do, that does buy you some kind of grace period here. But I think he is going to be incredibly well compensated, as he should be, especially because there's no salary cap for coaches. Just pay him what it takes. He's earned it. And then if you have to cut bait and down the road, then you worry about that then.
Do you get the feeling, because there was a lot of talk when Doug, they won Super Bowl 52. And a lot of talk that Jeffrey and Howie thought it was more them than Doug. And if they think the same way, and you can make that argument. I mean, This is the most talented team I've ever seen in hindsight, and that has to do with roster building. You think, hey, we can go do this with a $7 million coach instead of a $20 million coach. Any of that sort of go into the thought process?
Ooh.
I don't think that they don't think that. I don't think that they think that's
good answer.
I don't think that they're like, no, there's no way. But I just think that it's like, you have a good thing going for you. Why mess it up? Let's just ride it out. I'll pay a little bit more. We've got a good thing going for us until it proves to be some kind of deal breaker, which, again, Doug ended up being that for them. And a big reason why, as we all know, is because Doug was not really keen on taking his marching orders at that point in time. And I think Nick is more amenable to the pressure and the asks of him.
Yeah, but now he's got his guy at OC.
True.
He's got his guy. I think, look, I've said it pretty consistently. I think if we're up to Nick, Kevin Petullo would have been the offensive coordinator after Shane. But the Eagles thought they were going to lose Brian. They were going to lose Brian Johnson if they didn't elevate him. So he had to elevate him. And then after that went wrong and Brian got scapegoated, even though he had the number 1-8 offense, Kellen Moore had the number 8 offense as a head coach. I think he, was forced to go outside the organization for fresh ideas. Kellen Moore. And now he's finally got his guy. Does loyalty come into it? This is off-season talk, but I mean, this is the guy he's always wanted to be offensive coordinator. And if it doesn't go well, which I can't imagine, how bad could it go with this talent? So part of it is almost a fail-safe, but there's going to be plenty of criticism of Kevin Petullo. We know how it works in this town. And that's a guy that Nick is very, very loyal to. And that's sort of what happened to Doug. Too loyal.
Yeah.
Any of these hurdles for you?
I do. Well, I do think that's going to be, a very interesting dynamic this year. And just, I think Kevin Patullo enters this job with a lot of pressure. I think there's I don't know if there is a coaching staff member who has more pressure than him, just because of the spotlight here, and just how it's gone in the past with Brian Johnson, who I think still got kind of a raw deal, a little.
I'm with you. I think he got a very big raw deal.
And then Mike Rowe too, obviously coming off the first one. So there's a lot of pressure here, and I mean, there was a lot of pressure on Kellen Moore last year, who won the Super Bowl, but obviously the offense wasn't quite what everyone wanted it to be. I would say over the course of the season, especially until late there, the championship game and the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, he certainly is entering the season in the crosshairs, and because he is more so an extension of Sirianni, then that does I think kind of more directly go back to the head coach, and it isn't just like last year where it's like maybe Sirianni a little bit more plausible deniability there from the standpoint of hey, you're the ones who wanted to bring Kellen Moore in. So yeah, it does.
Do you
put
think
pressure.
that in some ways that might help Kevin from the standpoint, because that went on last year when they were doing poorly early before they took off, but when they were doing poorly early, it was Nick's taking over. This looks like Nick's offense. And then when they would do well, they're letting Kellen do it. In this case, it'll be like Kevin's an extension, as you said, of Nick Sirianni. Will that help him at all? Will that give him a little bit of rope? Will people be willing to blame Nick first? Because their perception of Nick, even though he's a Super Bowl winning coach, is his offense is boring and, stale and that type of thing.
Right.
I do think Kevin Patullo, for as much as we say, and he is Nick Sirianni's guy. I mean, he also did things. He was at other. It's not as simple as he's been at literally every stop with Nick Sirianni his entire career. It's certainly I would say not the way that Doug Nussmeier has followed Kellen Moore around. Those two have basically been tied at the hip from stop to stop to stop. It's a little bit different than that. I think Kevin Patullo probably doesn't get enough credit for being his own man. That's something he even talked about the Super Bowl. There's a stretch basically from after were they together on the Chiefs, or they were around there at around the same time? If not,
I think that's where they met,
right?
And then they were together in Indy and here. Obviously.
But yeah, Patullo was in Buffalo for 3 years. The Titans. He was at the Jets for 2 years. He went back to college football for a year in 2017. So there's a 10-year or so stretch there where he was doing his own thing. So he does have, I think, his own ideas. He's his own man as well. But because of the perception, certainly, that's going to be tied into how Sirianni is perceived as well.
You could make an argument here, and I'll pose this to both of you, that the internal pressure, meaning the pressure that Kevin might put on himself, could be greater than the pressure of the organization. And what I mean by that is Jeffrey Lurie said it yesterday. It's become valuable to be offensive coordinator here. You get a head coaching job, or you set your career back 3 years like Brian Johnson did. You get fired. You got to go back to quarterback. You got to go rebuild back up the wheel. So you could make an argument.
Brian got a nice golden parachute. He got the assistant head coach title, which it is a step back from.
It's a step back.
It wasn't like he had to go back to being a position coach. Passing game coordinator, I think, an assistant head coach.
I thought he was the quarterback coach in Washington, or is he not that?
No. He's assistant head coach.
Assistant head coach. Okay.
Yeah. Which, again, Kevin was the associate head coach. Yeah. If you went by a normal business, Jamal Singleton is the assistant head coach. Kevin's was the associate head coach. They would be above Kellen Moore on a normal float, but they're not. So it's just the NFL. So, I don't know if you're a Cheers fan, Brandon, because it's a bit old and I'm old, but they had a great episode. And in the bar, they weren't able to give anybody raises, so they gave them titles and everybody was thrilled. And I always think of that when I see these titles, and they give them a little bit more money and it makes everybody happy. But the offensive coordinator is ahead of the assistant head coach and the associate head coach. So Kevin technically got a promotion, And Brian got a demotion. But I do think it's interesting that, you know, they had the number 8 offense in 2023. They had the number 8 offense in 2024. Different looking because of Saquon Barkley, more run heavy 2024. But it you know, if you gave Brian Johnson, we were talking about this with Mike Gill, so I'll throw it to you. If Brian Johnson had the number 1 defense helping him, I think he'd be a head coach right now. I really believe that. So
maybe Kevin Petula's got to go and knock on Fangio's door. Yo, dude, I need you, man. I need you to have a good year this year again.
Well, I think some of the numbers were better, right? Like for Brian Johnson than they were for Kellen Moore last year.
A lot of the numbers were better.
So funny how that works. Yeah, I mean, perception's a big part of all of it, right?
Yeah.
And overall team success. So certainly, yeah. But yeah, I mean, on the upside, like we're talking about pressure and what could go wrong. I mean, yeah, if he does crush it this year, then he's absolutely going to be a hot head coaching candidate next year.
Oh, yeah. Jeffrey's right about that. If you're the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, you're in a good spot, unless Jeffrey decides you're the problem. So there's always a give and take, but overall, I would take that position. And plus, you're going to call plays because Nick doesn't want to do it. So that helps as well, the perception for a head coaching job. Got to get to some football, even though it's been rules and executives talking. Well, top 30 visit news, defensive tackle. I forget Shamar, another Shamar from Texas will be the latest, at least reported top 30 visits. And we've talked about this before, but boy, a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of defensive front people. This can't be this can't be nothing. I mean, if you're a betting man, BLG, you got to bet on offensive line and defensive front, both at least in the first 2 days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and shocker, the Eagles like to build through the trenches, but I mean, they're really leaning into this with I mean, you look at like the visits that aren't the ones that like stand out in a way, like okay, a Texas running back Jaden Blue, like okay, a running back, and then Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston. But like other than that, offensive linemen, edge rushers, defensive tackle, like it's they're loading up. They're clearly targeting the trenches here. I mean, in the offensive line, by the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 so far reported. Yeah. I'm sure they're talking to more. Like I know they signed, Matt Pryor. I know they added Kendall Lamb, and they already have a lot of offensive linemen. And I know they extended Lane Johnson, but they are absolutely clearly like looking at top offensive line prospects and are not going to be afraid to invest in that position, even if it means probably sitting that player for a year.
And it's Shamar Turner from Texas A&M. So that's who I'm talking about. He's coming in for a top 30 visit. More of a defensive Milton Williams type defensive tackle. So, I don't think he's a day 1 guy, but I do think he's a day 2 guy. And clearly, Howie's been pretty honest, as I said, talking about patience. But the AJ Brown year, I think that's the one you look at and say, all right, they got AJ Brown on draft night. That was the year they also got Bradbury in later
in like August, right? Or like
June, I think.
June.
Yeah, June.
And then the CJ trade at the initial cut down to 53. So you think about that. You get an all-pro receiver, a second-team all-pro corner, and the NFL leader in interceptions that year, all from draft day forward. That's what Howie's trying to get when he says patience. I don't know. It's not going to hit like that, but
right.
There's going to be some meaningful additions, I think, to this roster that go beyond the draft. Is that something that you think is possible, or are we past that point of no return other than potential trades? Or do you think a Justin Simmons type might help?
Yeah, I don't like just like relying on that as a concept. Like, oh, there's still time. We'll definitely be able to add like this because it's not a guarantee. And like you just said, like to expect what they did in 2022, like that's not the norm. That's the exception. But I will say, like even last year, they added Mekhi Becton after the draft, and I think that's kind of what Howie should almost stress more is that there are different like waves of free agency and veteran acquisition periods. There is like the post draft period where your comp pick won't be impacted because you're after that deadline. And also sometimes players want to see how the draft goes. And then, okay, this team still has a hole here. He's not going to draft someone, over me. And then I'm going to be in a bad spot. Like I can just go to that team now that I know they're not going to draft someone. Or, training camp starts to get here. And then, a player kind of maybe just wanted to kind of like really take the offseason off and not, be part of OTs or anything.
Steve Nelson showed up.
Exactly.
2 days before camp, and then he was taking first team reps on day one.
Or sometimes I think some players might want to wait into training camp so they can miss like a week or two. And then, obviously, like when they got CJ, that was closer to cut down a little bit. So there's all these different waves of, again, the veteran acquisition period. And, that'll go along. And I expect the Eagles to be opportunistic when the moment strikes.
Yeah. Steve Nelson. Yeah. Remember that offseason? It was always Zach McPherson as a 4th round pick. Oh, Zach McPherson's going to potentially start at corner. No. Steve showed up and I think he took every first team rep.
He had a pretty good year, actually, Steven.
Yeah, he was fine.
He wasn't bad.
Yeah, he was solid. He had a solid season. Yeah. He was a good player. Not great, but good, solid pickup. No,
BLG, thank you for joining the show, man. Make sure you guys go and follow BLG at Brandon Gout and read all his work at Bleeding Green Nation, the best Eagles website out there. BLG, thank you, brother. We'll talk to you again next week. All right, man.
See you guys.
Thanks, bud.
There's BLG joining the show here on Birds 365, the 1000th episode of Birds 365 coming to a close here in just a couple of minutes. Johnny Mac, how's it feel to do 1,000 shows, man? You started off the 1,000th show on a hot tangent. I mean, I said, "How you doing, Johnny?" You were off to the races.
Yeah, well, I'm tush pushed out. There's so much, like nobody's arguing the right points, and I do get frustrated because I hit this one on the head, man.
You did.
I explained exactly what was going to happen, and people are still talking about everything that doesn't matter when it comes to this particular subject. So sometimes it gets frustrating, but yeah, I'm tush pushed out, and I don't think the Eagles need it, but it's grown into this mythical thing. Like I said, they were under 80% last year. There were a bunch of times when Landon Dickerson was jumping off sides because everybody was so hyper focused on stopping it.
Right.
And Jeffrey Lurie sort of alluded to this. And sometimes it was just as simple as that, lining up off sides. And the bottom line is they're going to be truly successful no matter what because of the talent. And I think they should have adjusted themselves, to be honest, and sort of started. I've said this for, a long time. They should spread people out. It'd be easier for them. Just put 5 receivers on the field and let Jalen go. Because you have to respect the receivers. So if you have 5 receivers on the field and just say, Jalen, go up to the line of scrimmage, figure out where the bubble is and go. It'll be way above 80%. Yeah, I guarantee you that.
You're going to see that soon, John. So get ready.
Way above 80%. Way above.
You did put the context in though last year where the some of the first attempts weren't successful.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. But I put it on both sides. They were 92.9% on first attempps.
The year prior?
2021, the year prior to when I started using the tush push.
Right.
They were 92.9% on first try traditional quarterback sneaks. Now, they were very successful overall last year. That's where the context is. So, a lot of times, and part of it is I try to give all sides of the story. Part of it is they were more willing to say 3rd and 2. All right, we're going to tush push it. But I'm not trying to say they weren't very successful. with that play because they were. I'm saying it was and Jeffrey Lurie said the same thing. So if you don't want to listen to me, listen to Jeffrey Lurie. They were less successful than they had been. And it was trending in a negative direction. That's all I'm trying to say. What should you do when it's trending? You should go back to something else, which worked very well. And again, you can go back to Jalen Hurts' first season, 92.9%. You can go back to 2017 when it was 100% with Carson Wentz.
Woo! Carson Wentz was a good quarterback sneak player for sure. No, it's interesting. I'm ready to not talk about it again until May, which is only a month away. It's April,
and I promise I will not talk about it tomorrow.
When
I will not be bringing it up. What's that?
Do they know when that meeting is in May?
Yeah, it's on the schedule. I don't have it in front of me. I could look it up, but
I just said May, like it's far away. I just realized it's April freaking 2nd, and we're already almost in May.
Yeah. It's coming up soon. So there's the calendar. Woo! Spring league meeting, coach accelerator is taking place in my old home of Minneapolis on May 20th and 21st.
Nice. There you go. Good stuff there. So that'll take place in May. We have about a month and a half until we get to that point. So we'll talk about it then, I'm sure, and see what they end up doing. I think they're going to get rid of it. I think in May it's going to happen. John, you think they're going to get rid of it in May, or you think they're not going to have the vote yet?
Odds are if the commissioner gets behind it, and he's clearly behind it, and they table it, odds are they're going to get the votes, but it's not 100%. And the more they go about it the wrong way, the more likely they're not able to get the votes. I will say that.
Right.
But if they rework it and expand it and frame it as a more all-encompassing rule that just bans pushing, I think it takes it, because there's a lot of people that can do what they're doing, which is also disingenuous. So while I say it's disingenuous that the NFL brings up health and safety, which I agree with, it's disingenuous to say that this is about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. That's disingenuous. It is. So you heard Roger Goodell say what he said, the 2004, and again, the unintended consequences of changing these rules. Overtime, another perfect example. Didn't have to change it, changed it, fucked it up. Now they got to go to a more uniform situation. Who knows? 10 years down the road, we might be going back to sudden death because stinks. It's over legislated to begin with, but nobody's against the Philadelphia Eagles.
But BLG did bring up a good point where it became the top topic of 2 off seasons after the Eagles had the most success. I thought that was a good point. I mean, you might be right in that it's not all about.
Well, the Eagles, but I think
they are the catalyst for it.
I think it became a thing after this season. Again, the assumption is the success, but you're ignoring Chris Jones and Frankie Luvu and just focusing on, the Eagles won the game. Like I brought up
yesterday, I thought the Luvu play was the one thing that would sway people because you have one of the most watched games of the year and you have a 5-minute sequence on the field.
Well, that's what the NFL is more concerned about.
Right. And that I understand, especially if you're an owner. The other thing I thought you said that was good was, just you want to get votes, just hit them in the pocketbook. I mean, you're going to have squeaky owners that don't care that much. There's going to be some owners who are like, no, I'm not breaking because I believe this. Then there's going to be owners who are, whatever. And once you tell them, hey, you might lose money. Okay, you got my vote.
If you can convince Jeffrey he's going to lose money,
you're
going to have his vote.
Yeah, really.
That's one thing I guarantee.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And that's why they do things the way they do. And they tag health and safety on everything, basically. And they didn't go back. Remember, they removed the kickoff for health and safety, but then it got too far and it lost the entertainment value. Now it's back. Now they dress it up. obviously they talk about no high impact plays, trying to limit them. You remove the wedge from the game. They've done some things to, again, address some of those safety concerns. But the bottom line is, if they were truly concerned about safety, they just would have left it out of the game. But it's more, that part of it's more the PR aspect. And the bigger part for the owners is obviously, all right, 18 games, not an issue because that's collectively bargained. Again, you got to wrap your head around that difference, guys. That the players are going to agree to that. So the legal repercussions of that, or potential legal repercussions of that, are far more limited because they agreed to it in collective bargaining, or will agree to it in collective bargaining, as they have when they moved from 14 to 16 and 16 to 17. Those were all joint decisions. This is not a joint decision. And already it's public knowledge that they could have changed this rule. And that's how you weaponize it and say to the owners, well, we're at legal peril here.
We'll see what happens. John, I forgot to rattle through these super chats. Let's rattle through them before we get out of here on 1,000. Philly Don, congrats on the 1,000th show, and may there be another 1,000 on the horizon. You guys and Big Sills are the best. Philly Don, thank you, brother. JD3 checks in. Future Eagles legend Harrison Bryant already better than Bryce Huff. Love to see it. Keep hating J-Mac. I don't think he was hated.
Our one Harrison Bryant fan. Yeah, I admire. That's like a pumper-like shtick. I admire the
Brian does something, boy. This JD3 deserves something. Jay Perfect with 2 back-to-backs. He says, the whole overrated play caller idea, I don't agree. When your head coach is a play caller, he's less likely to be pulled away by another team. Jalen has had 4 or 5 play callers due to Nick not being the one calling plays. Nick is a great CEO coach, but play calling helps with continuity. It definitely helps with continuity, but even if your coach calls plays, what do you mean?
You follow a team that has made the playoffs 4 consecutive years, made the Super Bowl twice, and won a Super Bowl. And you're complaining that the head coach should be the play caller? Has there ever been a better era of Philadelphia Eagles football?
No, there hasn't. It's a good response. Sorry, Jay Perfect, but you lost that one real quick. Worst behavior checks in. What's up, Worst? If the tush push had that much of a competitive advantage, everyone would do it.
Come on, dude. Did you listen to this discussion at all?
Definitely address that. Jay Perfect says, why are defenses allowed to have 5 guys tackle a guy backwards, but offenses can't push a guy forward?
What are we, 2-year-olds here?
Yeah, Jay, come on, man. The defense is damn near legislated out of the game. We're talking about we're the Birds 365. We cover the flag football league. We're close to that. JD3, Nick Sirianni would box Sean McDermott the F up. I agree with that. JD3, he would murk him. Jason A-Team, J-Mac, did you hear Mr. Lurie say, Nick and Howie are never risk-averse? I immediately thought of you and how Nick Sirianni did go risk-averse with offense this year.
Well, they did, but, they had a reason.
It was successful. Yeah, it was hard. It was super successful.
I mean, look, this is not – you can't copy what the Eagles did. Like, I think a lot of people say it's a copycat league and just copy what the Eagles did. Well, then you have to find the running back who's capable of running for 2,500 yards and the offensive line that's the best in football. And maybe you can replicate it, and you still got to get the number 1 defense on top of it. It's a very small path. Like, I understand people want to spike the football, and they should because they're Eagles fans, and this was a historic team. But you can't copy this. Like, you're much more likely if you're another team.
Right.
You can't get all those pieces in place to play this style of football. And Jalen's a big part of it. The defense is a big part of it, as I said. How many quarterbacks, for all the people that think which bothers me, that I disrespect, I hate that word, disrespect Jalen Hurts for questioning, there are aspects to his game that he needs to improve on. And by the way, he would be the first to say that before me. But and ignore all the positive things. And the most positive thing I've said about Jalen Hurts for years is his unique ability to, as he'll say, plush plays. Like most quarterbacks get rattled. They're having a bad game. They're having a bad game. I can't even come up with another guy that can have a bad first quarter, a bad second quarter, a bad third quarter, and still beat you in the fourth. By that time, most quarterbacks are mentally beaten. This guy's always coming. It's not his day, but he makes a play, did it in Indianapolis, did it in Houston back in the first Super Bowl season, did it constantly here. He's always, you got to play 60 minutes. It's what they used to call Adrian Peterson, an all-day sucker. That's what Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah, he is.
You can bottle up. You could bottle up Adrian Peterson, bottle him up, and then bang, 75 yards. And that's Jalen Hurts. You can bottle him up. You can bottle him up. You can bottle him up, and then bang, he's making big plays to beat you. It's hard to replicate this team. And
and I think the point you bring up is good because we're talking about risk averse. You could almost argue it was risky to become risk averse because, as you mentioned, the path to success is slim. It's narrow.
It's very narrow.
So it was risky to become risk averse and stick to what they were doing, but they did it and it worked out. Good stuff, A-Team. Thank you, brother. Brian Pumper, 2 more. Tell Roger Goodell to table D's nuts. I see the new bum-ass narrative. The Philly fans base will feed off this band. Perfect fan base. Well, we will. I mean, come on, Pumper. You got to acknowledge who we are.
I don't care about it. Let's be honest. I mean, we've discussed it from every angle, I think. Now, again, I'll spike the football. To this point, I can't tell you if they're going to get 24 points, but to this point, I told you exactly what was going to happen with this. And it's going exactly the way I thought it was going to go. And I think they're going to pass it. I think it's going to be expanded. It's going to involve much more than the tush push. But yeah, people are always going to say, fans are always going to say they hate the Eagles. They're jealous. I don't get that at all. Like, when I brought up, and Albert Breer had the discussion with Howie was having with Alan Sills, who's the chief medical officer. And Sills is the one who gave away the NFL's position. Not about what happened before. It's about what might happen. Risk assessment. And for all the people that say, you can't do that, insurance industry does it every fucking day. That's what they do. That's why players have in their contracts, don't ride motorcycles.
Right.
Don't you parachute out of airplanes. Is something bad going to happen? No, probably not. Especially if you're doing what you're supposed to do. Risk assessment. Look it up. It's not just the NFL.
Good stuff there. Sig Lord, there's only one team affected by this ban. Sig Lord doesn't like that you said it has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Eagles.
77. No, what is the number? I want to
78, right? 77, 78.
It's not as good as you think it was. Very successful. You've been bamboozled. You've been manipulated. Jeffrey Lurie said it. Don't listen to me. Listen to Jeffrey Lurie. 77.8% of first try tush pushes were successful last year. 38 of 49. 2021, the last year the Eagles used the traditional quarterback sneak, which was Jalen Hurts' first season as a starter. 92.9% successful. First try quarterback sneaks.
Are you going to make the claim if this thing gets banned, the percentage will go up? You've been saying that. You think
it'll go up from last year. Oh, unquestionably.
Yeah. whether tush pushes in or not. Johnny Mac, good stuff, man. Your final thoughts. We went way over time on the 1000th episode. Your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm tush pushed out. Please, no questions about the tush push. Not from you, but the fan.
We're done. We're done with the tush push.
If fan asks, I'll obviously have to answer it, but yeah, let's turn the page.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Johnny Mac, great show, brother. We appreciate you doing it. Well done on 1,000 shows. John, I'm going to ask one hypothetical in honor of Jody Mack. Well, I guess this isn't a hypothetical. Maybe it wasn't the right thing. In the next 1,000 shows, how many Super Bowls will the Eagles win, or will it be none? We got one.
That's about 4 years. What have we been on? 4+ years?
4 seasons, right? That'd be about 4 seasons.
Yeah, I'm going to say one.
All right. I can live with that. Another one in the next 4 years. That'd be pretty good. J-Mac, thank you, brother. Good stuff, brother. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Thursday edition of Birds 365.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good stuff.
1001 tomorrow.
Let's go. Love it. Good stuff there from Johnny Mac. John McMullen. Make sure you guys follow him on X at JF McMullen. 1,000 strong for J-Mac, man. That's a lot of shows. That's a lot of freaking shows. All right. But if you're talking to me, 1,000 is nothing. 1,000. I'm looking to do 50,000. All right. How many years? Can somebody calculate how many years it would take me to do 50,000 shows? All right. Take a lot. I don't know if I'll be able to do that in my lifetime. Probably have to do multiple. I'll probably have to do multiple per day to get to that. 3-4 per day. But I'll be doing a lot of shows in my lifetime. All right. So 1,000 is rookie numbers. But for Johnny Mac, it is a big thing. Most shows that start don't make it to 1,000. All right. So it's pretty good. Pretty good that we made it here. Let's go to Mad Dia. Mad Dia, sorry, your super chat came in after J-Mac left. He says, I live on the Olympic Peninsula, so I don't watch many live shows. Thank you for the 2,000 hours of football all day. That's a dope comment, man. 2,000 hours. When you put it like that, holy shit. Holy shit. 136 years if I did it on D. Hughes. Thank you, sir. 136 years. All right, I'm 26 years old. So I got to make it to what? 162? So I got to make it to 162 if I did it on the weekends too. So let's go double up. So if we double it up and do 2 shows per day, I can half that number. All right. That'd be pretty good. So if we can half that number, then we get to what? 68? Now we're at 68. 68 years if I do 2 shows a day, including weekends. If you less weekends, now we're talking about 3 shows a day, 75 years. All right. 50,000 shows. I think I can get there. Yeah, but Mark doesn't do shows. Mark does videos. So, dude, Steve, if you want to tell me how many 7-minute videos I can make in the next 50 years, dude, I can make 50K is light work. I can make 100K. Easy. But we don't do 7-minute videos. We do a 2-hour live show every day. Philly Native becomes a member. Philly Native, I saw you put in there. You got a Kango. What color Kango did you get? And what style? You can't just tell me you got a Kango. I know the whole website like the back of my hand. Oh, same one you got. 504. I went black, though, to match my Eagles gear. Nice, man. 504 is my favorite. I can't do the 507s. They're not for me, but everybody's got a different head style. All right, get a different head shape. Philly Native becomes a member. I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. No holidays, no retirement. Well, I'm not retiring, Brent. I can tell you that. At 26 years old, I already know. I will be one of the people who does not want to retire. I mean, I get bored on Saturdays, dude. I'm like, what are we doing? Yeah. I like working. And working's never been an issue for me. I've liked working since I was young. I used to, back in the day, you guys who wants to guess what my first, well, I guess it wasn't my first job. Definitely wasn't my first job. But after I got my license, anybody want to guess what I did at 16? All right. Anybody want to guess what I do? What I was at 16? I could do a Saturday show. Maybe I'll work that in, Flexion. It's a good idea. I was a pizza delivery boy, and let me tell you, I was one of the best pizza delivery boys ever. Nah, my dad was a paper boy. My dad, my dad was a yep, a couple of you guys got it. Dang, my dad was a paper boy starting at 7 years old. Think about this. His dad woke up one morning. His dad left, never came back. So my dad's father, my grandfather, who I never met, walked out on my pops. My dad becomes the man of the house at 7 years old. The next day, he said he walked in to the whatever it was where they were hiring the paper boys, and he begged them At 7 years old, by the time he turned 8, he was delivering papers, and been doing that since he was 8. My dad's been working his ass off since he was 8 years old. So that's where I get the work from, man. I don't mind work. Never bothered me. And I come from a working family. My dad's a hard worker. So no doubt about it. No doubt about it. 52 weeks a year, 5 days per week, 1 show per day, 50,000 divided by 260 days. That's 192 years. There you go. There's the math. All right, now, Abe, now double it up. Let's half that. All right, so you got what, 96? 96 is half of 192, I think, if I'm doing my math right in my head. 96 years, so we got to up that to 3, then we can take a third of that, and you're probably looking at, what, 70? 70? No, a little less than that. 60? 64? 64 years if we do 3 per day. All right, so with Cilio, that's not my show, but all right, we all going to be dead. Flexion, that's one thing, all right? From the ground is where we came. From the ground we will return, okay? Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, appreciate you guys. I know I told you guys there was going to be a giveaway today, but here's my dilemma. I don't have time because giveaways take too long. So I have somewhere to be by 11 a.m., and it's 25 minutes away. So I got to get ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'll do an extra giveaway tomorrow. So I'm going to do 4 giveaways this week. I promised you guys 4. I'm still going to do 4. I'll do 4. I'll do 2 tomorrow and 2 Friday. All right. So I know you guys are going to be pissed at me, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? I have shit to do. I got places to be. I still got to ship out everything. I shipped yesterday, and then I forgot to at the house. So I did. And then the post office closed, and then I'm like, fucking A. All right. So I apologize. Look at Bird Gang Girl. She's not happy with me. She does the invisible emoji. I'm sorry, Bird Gang Girl. I'll do it tomorrow. All right. I'll do it tomorrow. But I appreciate all you guys. Philly native, thank you, bro, for becoming a member. Congrats on the Kango. When you put it on, Philly native, I want you to relish that moment. All right. Not many can pull off a Kango, and the few who do are struck with a power, an indescribable power. All right. By the way, I love this freaking orange Kango, man. I love the pop. Thing pops off the screen. All right. Appreciate all you guys. See you next time, everybody. Yo, Wilfredo, what's up, brother? Appreciate you being here. See you next time, everybody. Love all you guys. Couple giveaways coming tomorrow. I apologize for no 1,000 giveaways today, but I got somewhere to be. So thank you all. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.